Well, hello, I'm Jason Kadah. I'm an airport operations supervisor here at the Prescott Airport, and prior to coming to the city of Prescott, I was a television meteorologist for a little under 20 years, most recently down in the Phoenix area at Channel 5, and I also did some temporary work for Channel 15, the ABC station as well. So the actual definition of the word monsoon simply means a seasonal reversal of the prevailing winds. Normally our prevailing winds are from the west or even northwest, and it's a much drier feel for us here in Arizona. But during this monsoon season, the prevailing winds turn more out of the south, and it's sort of like a conveyor belt of moisture or humidity that gets drawn up from Mexico. So down in Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, right up into Arizona, gets intensely heated by the daytime sun, and that's what builds those puffy clouds and eventually showers and thunder showers. Well, the monsoon's really important to us here in Arizona. It's that time we typically pick up about 40 to 50% of our annual rainfall. And it's especially needed this year because, at least here in the Prescott area, since January 1st, we have less than 30% of normal rainfall in the official rain gauge. And the way you start to tell that monsoon season is sort of upon us is, number one, the humidity levels increase, and you'll start to notice it. You'll also start to notice the clouds that are up in the sky. Instead of becoming flat, they become more puffy, like big cotton balls. That's a good sign that the rains are nearby. When it comes to thunderstorms, you need three main ingredients to get an actual thunderstorm to build. Number one, you need moisture or humidity. Number two, you need a very unstable atmosphere up over our head. In other words, you take a warm bubble of air and it keeps rising vertically. And number three, you need a lifting mechanism, whether that's a cold front, a weather disturbance, or in our case here in northern Arizona, the mountains. So some of the biggest threats, courtesy of these monsoon thunderstorms, are very heavy, possibly flooding rains, frequent cloud-to-ground lightning, and very gusty what we call outflow boundaries, and they can kick up the winds ahead of these storms upwards of 40, even 50 miles an hour. One of the things you really want to be on the lookout for is when the National Weather Service issues a watch or a warning, particularly the warning. When you see a weather warning, a severe thunderstorm warning, flash flood warning, that means the event's actually happening somewhere in our area. Arizona also has what's called a stupid motorist law. And that basically says if you drive into flooding rains to cross a road, for example, or barricades, or there's signage up, you could be held responsible and would have to pay back first responders for rescuing you. So please, for your own safety, do not ignore if you happen to see barricades or signage indicating flash flooding, because a lot of folks don't know that just about a foot of moving water, because water has force, particularly moving water, that can actually float away most vehicles, resulting in someone having to come out and rescue you. Typically, when it comes to frequency of monsoon storms, we don't usually get 2 active days of monsoon storms. The reason being, the atmosphere is sort of like us. If we went to the gym to work out, you work out really hard one day, typically your body, your muscles are sore such that the next day you really don't want to go to the gym and work out again. Well, the atmosphere is sort of the same way. If it gets a really good workout and we get an active day one day, typically we don't see the next day being as active. It usually takes a day or two for the atmosphere to recover. Well, because most monsoon rains and thunderstorms are relatively short-lived, an actual storm will only last about 45 minutes or so. When it comes to us here at the airport, it's very rare that a monsoon storm is going to delay or cancel your flight. There could well be a short delay if a storm is literally right over the airport, but typically there's a short delay, the storm moves away, and the plane can move on to its destination. Now, for some of our smaller planes here on the airport, one of the things we have to look out for, the wind obviously, so a lot of the planes out there will be tied down if they're outside, and some of the stronger storms could well produce some hail, and last year, unfortunately, we did have quite a bit of hail damage on some of our smaller aircraft out here at the airport. So how do you know when monsoon season is over with? Well, I think you'll start to know, even though on the calendar we say September 30th it's over. Usually that first big cold front of the early fall that comes from the west, basically it acts like a faucet and just turns off what's you feel as moisture and humidity. And the dry air filters in, and that's the faucet basically that turns off the monsoonal moisture. Now, in terms of what are we looking at for this monsoon season, if I had to get out my weather crystal ball, rub it a few times, I would say I think it's looking pretty good, because a lot of the same parameters atmospherically that are in place this season were in place last season. And last season, we had a pretty good monsoon. So fingers crossed, we desperately need it, and stay safe out there.